So I do have siblings. None of us have the same mother, but five of us have the same father, and we have a beautiful relationship.
Hi, I'm Jason Phillips. I'm a licensed mental health clinician known as the Confidence Expert. With over 10 years of experience in the mental health field and coaching profession, I'm an expert in evidence-based treatment and strategic goal setting to foster success. As a speaker, I frequently present on topics including emotional wellness in the workplace, effective communication, mental health 101, and trauma-informed care. When you're looking for an informative, educational, and engaging speaker, contact Jason Phillips with Peace and Prosperity Coaching. Man, well, welcome y'all to another episode of the Peace and Prosperity Podcast. Super excited for this episode. I got my brother, Monroe, in the building. This is someone who I've known for probably a couple years now. Like, time goes by, so probably like 2 or 3 years, and really respect you, man, the work that you do, the person that you are, how you show up, like your energy, all of that. So
Bro,
I've been
you can't
anticipating this
front
one.
load this energy like see, man, you have a brother cheesing and all that
Yeah,
already. Thank you, man.
I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it. But without further ado, brother, introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are.
All right, man. Listen, first of all, man, I'm so excited to be here with you. Everything you said, man, that goes right back to you, brother. So thank you. But Monroe Howard, I'm originally from California, but I now reside in Washington, D.C., the DMV. Yeah, man, and I'm a licensed master social worker. I'm a therapist in private practice, licensed in Maryland, Virginia, and doing some great work with our community, primarily the LGBTQ community, in the intersection of Blackness and queerness. So yeah, that's me.
Man, you doing some great work. Like, I know we'll get into a lot of stuff, but I've had the opportunity to work with Monroe on a number of different just like platforms, man, and just people gravitate towards you. It's like, oh, he's in the, like, my wife was like, tell him I said what's up. I know she probably wanted to pop in
Sis.
here, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, man, it's really like great to come full circle, have you on the show, because you've been busy. You've been on the West Coast, you've been on the East Coast, you've been out the country, like you've been
Yeah.
getting it in.
Yeah. The last 6 months, man, have been, quite. I travel a lot in general, both for personal and business, but these last 6 months have been particularly, hectic with my travel schedule. I'm currently home in DC, and I'll be here for the next 35 days, and I'm excited about it. But I've been handling some business. I'm originally from Sacramento, California, and my grandmother is aging, and my sister is the primary caretaker and has been for the last 3 years, man. And she's a mother and full-time worker, and she's holding it down. She's the real MVP. So I've had to, step up a little bit more and provide some more support. So that's brought me back to California once a month, sometimes a week, 2 weeks at a time. So you can imagine, that back and forth, the time change, and still maintaining my work as a therapist, my work as a, consultant, all of that kind of stuff, man. It's been a little hectic, but but I've dropped a few little pleasure trips in there, man. I went across the seas, and got a little Miami in there as well, and some other domestic locations. So I try to fit it all in, as much as I
Man.
can.
No, that's a lot. That's a lot, when you're going back and forth, especially when it's for a personal reason too. So you mentioned your grandmother. Is your grandmother a big part of your life, or what's that role that she played in your life?
Absolutely, man. So I was an only child. I was my mother's only child. And unfortunately, man, my mother died when I was 21 years old. So it was obviously a major devastation, the still yet to date the biggest devastation of my life in terms of losing my angel, as I refer to her. And but my grandmother, this strong, beautiful Black woman who, I mean, man, growing up, my grandmother wasn't the image of the woman in the kitchen making the biscuits. She had the briefcase and the business suit on, going out having business, right? So I learned a lot from her in terms of, being a business individual, being an entrepreneur, enterprise minded, and then just seeing her kind of have multiple hustles, and yet still holding it down in terms of being the rock, the matriarch for our family, She is now, out of 8 children, there are only 2 left, her and her youngest sister. And she's 87, will be turning 88 in December, gosh, get it right, Monroe, in August.
It's all good.
So, and unfortunately, she's dealing with early onset Alzheimer's and dementia. But man, she's a 35-year breast cancer survivor. She has just done so much in this life, a woman of God. So she has really laid a foundation and example for our entire family, but she is someone I look up to. And in the passing of my mother, while she, didn't replace my mom, it is definitely an honor to be able to still interact with the essence of my mother, because that's a lot of who my mom was. It is the woman who I still get to interact with today, and my grandmother. Yeah.
Damn, I was going to ask you, like, what was your mom like?
Man, let me tell you something. All right, you see now, you see the waterworks is going to start early on, but it's all good. I'm gonna let that flow if it comes through. Man, but let me just tell you, my mother was such a wonderful, beautiful spirit. And I'm going to say is, because her spirit still resides within me heavily, and is with me daily. But man, she wasn't a flashy woman. She was a woman who enjoyed life. But the biggest lesson that I have carried on, and the legacy that she left me, was a legacy of gratitude. She was a woman of gratitude. At every juncture, regardless of what life was bringing her, man, she was able to find gratitude in the situation. She was a woman of faith, right? Not a religious woman, but a woman of faith. She identified as a Christian woman, but she was not, stuck to the dogma and the, harmful theology. But she was all about God's love and the love that Christ showed. And that's what she showed to people without the expectation of recognition or reciprocation. But the thing is that her deposits, let me tell you something, man, her deposits, I'm reaping the benefits. I reap the benefits of the things in which she poured into other people, because people have poured into my life from day one until present day. And so I'm so grateful that I got 21 years. While it wasn't enough for me and my whole, my selfish mind, it wasn't enough, man. I'm so grateful that I was able to experience 21 years. And she lives with me. She's right here in my office. I have my pride and possession. You can't see it, but I have this picture hanging of my desk of her and I. And it is something that goes with me everywhere. And yeah, man, that's my mom, Pam Howard.
No, man, that's beautiful. I think I don't know if we actually got into that, because I lost my mom. I was probably about 32 or something, so I had a little more time. But yeah, so and my mom, like, and grandma, I don't know if I could turn the camera. You can't really see pictures, but
yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, like, I think that's a really good similarity that we have, and the fact that you said she's just is a woman of gratitude, and how she poured into you, and you're still reaping the benefits. And also, that means you said you're an only child. So, like, if mom is gone, I mean, you have a big family, but
so I was my mother's only child.
Right.
My father was not in my life until I became an adult. And at that point, I found out I had siblings. And so I had 4 other siblings. Pops was out there. He was doing his thing. 5 of us all got 5 different moms. But I am happy to say that at 28, I was able to establish a relationship with my father that has persisted and that has grown and has thrived. And he is a wonderful man who has completely turned his life around, and he gets to enjoy his children. He gets to enjoy his grandchildren. And so I'm so happy to be a part of that legacy as well. But yeah, man, I have 2 older brothers. I have 1 older sister, and then I have a younger sister. But I have a sister who I was raised with. That was my aunt's daughter, and we're first cousins, but we were raised more like brother and sister. So that's who I refer to when I say my sister in Sacramento, who is caring for our grandmother, because we don't see each other as cousins. So I do have siblings. None of us have the same mother, but 5 of us have the same father, and we have a beautiful relationship. Two of my siblings live in Phoenix with their families. My other sibling, my youngest, she lives in Detroit with her family.
What up, though?
Yeah, that's right, right.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
my father is from Detroit, like so.
Mm.
They all of my siblings grew up in Detroit. I was the only one. So
Okay.
yeah, so my grandparents, grandma and Papa Shack, may they rest in peace. They're all Detroit. So I have a huge Shackleford family in Detroit. That's my father's last name.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you this before we get more into present day. So like you said, you and your father reconnected at 28, and it's been great. Yeah. A lot of times we can harbor feelings because that parent is not there. How did you navigate that and form the relationship that y'all have today?
All right, man, I'm gonna go back a little bit, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's some things in here, right? So growing up as a young Black boy in a single parent household with a Black mother who did everything like to provide the most beautiful foundation of love and family and security and validation and assurance, right? I longed for nothing, right? But I didn't have my father. I didn't have my father in the home, and that made me very angry as a child. And I would have these huge outbursts, and there was also, I was dealing with my sexual identity and my sexual orientation, right? I've always identified as a cisgender, young man, boy, and man. So I always felt I was in the right body in terms of biologically, but in terms of sexual orientation, I knew that I had an attraction to boys and eventually men, and not what was the standard in which I was raised in terms of cisgender heteronormative environment, both in my community, in my school, in my church. It was everywhere, even in my family, right? I didn't know anybody who was queer in my family. So there was also a lot of resentment when I was young because I felt like the absence of my father contributed to me being different and me being outcast. And in an outcast in my own head, because I was not open about my feelings or about the exploration and all of that kind of stuff around my sexual orientation. But inside, I felt like everyone knew, everyone was looking, everyone was talking. And so it caused me to have to perform masculinity like early on. So I was super aware, right, around like the mannerisms, the things that I would say, all this other kind of stuff, because I was trying to protect that part of me. At the same time, I was angry about the fact that I didn't have a man in the house that I felt like could teach me those things. So I felt like I was having to learn them all on my own. So now what happens is that as wonderful as my mother is and was, right? I started to harbor anger and resentment towards her because early on and younger, right? I'm like, well, why isn't my father here? And like all these kind of questions. And my father was a alcoholic, a drug addict, for pretty much 30 plus years of his life, right? And my father was not a healthy person for me to be around. And my mother never kept me from him, ever, never, ever, ever. But she was very protective of her child and saying that for her and her child, she did not want me to be subjected to that environment, right?
That's a different environment. Yeah.
I didn't understand that as a child. All I knew was that my father wasn't there. And that made me angry and resentful. But I went to counseling. My mom was really concerned about, me having these rages and these outbursts. And it was mixed in with.
How old were you when you talk about these outbursts?
The first time I went to counseling, so I was having these outbursts from like 7 to like 14, right? I went to counseling at 12. Okay. And that's where I really kind of started to explore, not the sexual orientation or the sexuality right there, but I started to explore my feelings about not having a father in the home. And that really kind of helped me start to develop language, and to just be able to have an outlet, a more constructive outlet to talk through why I was angry. At 14 years old, I was able to release that anger that I was having towards my mom. And I tell you something, this is how God works, man.
Go ahead.
14, I was able to release that. At 17, she came to me and said she was diagnosed with breast cancer. At 21, I lost her. So when I think about the wonderful life that I had with my mother, even in those times when I was, expressing some anger towards her, I'm so grateful that I was able to release that so that it did not characterize, right? These impactful years of my life, especially through adolescence and going into young adulthood. And I was just able to have this beautiful relationship with my mom that was absent of the resentment or the anger that I once held because of the situation with my father. And the thing about it was, because my father was not present at all, there was really no anger to direct at him.
Right. So your mom caught the brunt of it until you about 14. So from 14 to 21, now you all were able to have a really thriving, beautiful relationship. So when she passed, you were able to, all those feelings have been resolved.
And no regrets, man. No regrets. There was no shortage of I love yous. There was no shortage of the action of I love you. Both ways. Our relationship was something that I cherish to this day, and it's something that I anchor myself in terms of how I even relate to others. So yeah, man. But then shortly after she passed away is when I connected to my father as an adult at 22 years old. That's when I met my brothers and sisters. My father was still an alcoholic. He was still a drug addict at that time. And it took him another 6 years to get clean. So at 28 is when he and I began the relationship that we have today. Yeah.
Wow. So let me go back though, because at 12, you went to counseling for the first time. And you had a successful run with counseling, because sometimes as therapists, we know 11, 12, 13-year-olds coming to our office, it could go either way. So what was it about that experience that helped you?
So first of all, it was a familiar face. So the church that I grew up in, Antioch Progressive Church in Sacramento, California, shout out to my Antioch family. We got there when I was 6 years old, and I was there until I was 18. And we actually just recently buried our pastor, Dr. Curtis J. Mitchell, about 4 weeks ago. But his wife, Sister Kay, she was a social worker. And our church had launched a foster agency, and she was the executive director of the foster agency. So she was the one that I went to for counseling, that my mom sought out counseling. So first of all, there was a familiar face.
Right.
And this woman of God was just radiating like love and warmth. And so immediately there was a connection for me that didn't feel foreign. So there was a level of transparency that I was able to, even at that age, I was able to, exhibit, because I knew her and I trusted her. Right. And so that really helped. And then of course, her approach that wasn't, here we go, as a pastor's wife, but yet still a social worker. She did not overlay this like religious dogma onto how she was speaking to me, but yet she was able to infuse spiritual principles that I was familiar with and could connect to.
So she could hit you with it without going straight at you.
So I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel judged, right? And she listened to me. And she heard me out, right? And I think that was something else, because, a lot of people grow up in this, dynamic of children are to be seen and not heard, right? Yeah. But she approached me as a person with whole feelings, with experiences, and with valid emotions. And that set it up for me to be able to open up and say, this is what I'm feeling. Even if I didn't really have the language in the beginning to say it, I could just articulate it in the way that made sense to me. And she was able to help me kind of work through that.
So how important was it for her to help you? Because you have a strong relationship with God, your higher power, your faith. So even throughout everything that you've been through, it seems like your faith in God has not wavered. Is that accurate or?
My faith in God has never wavered. My relationship with God has evolved.
Mm.
Okay. So my faith in God has never wavered. My relationship with God has evolved, because you have to understand too. Now let's go back to, again, the intersection of sexual orientation, right?
Right, right.
If you're growing up in a context that says heterosexuality is right, homosexuality is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
there's this inherent belief that starts to develop that you are not right with God. Okay.
Mm.
And that this was my journey, that you are not right with God. I grew up singing in the choir. I was a choir director. Music ministry has always been a part of my journey. And there was this thing I could not reconcile with the giftedness that I knew was of God and from God, and the way in
Yeah.
which I was able to use it, my gift, the way in which it would bless me and bless others. I'm like, wait a minute, but how can God be angry with me? How can God not like me or love me? And it was this thing that took me into adulthood to have to
Mm-hmm.
be able to reconcile, right? But I was still under the impression that because of who I was in terms of my attraction and who I loved or who I wanted to be romantically involved with, somehow, some way, God was like, no, you're a mistake. You are not pleased. So that's where I say,
Mm.
like, God continued to hold me. God held me through major transitions of my life. God held me through the worst experience ever of losing my mom. God held me through domestic violence situations. God held me through molestation. God held me through so many transitions and so many traumas of my life, and yet continued to sustain me and bless me. So my faith never wavered. But I
Mm.
had to evolve my relationship, because as I grew into my own understanding, my own study, my own experience of revelation, my relationship became my own and not through someone else.
Man. So Monroe, let's go back then. You're young, you starting to figure out that you have an attraction to boys, and you feel like this is not of what you see normal on TV and school.
Yeah.
How did you decide, hey, I need to process this or talk to somebody? Who was the first person that you shared this with?
Wow. Who was the first person that I shared this with? I'm trying to think, even if like at a young age, was I even able to share this with? I don't really think I was able to share this with anybody at a young age, because again, that was the secret that I had to guard at all costs. And anyone who would ever use the F word against me, anyone who would ever, say, oh, you gay, or that's gay, right? It would cut me to the bone,
Mm.
because I was trying to figure out, what am I not doing right to be able to conceal this? Wait a minute. I thought I calculated that.
Yeah.
I thought that through. What mannerism? What did I say? How did I do this? How did I move? And it was exhausting. It was exhausting. And I still didn't feel safe as a young person to be able to have that conversation. I didn't have the conversation with anyone until I was actually experiencing my first heartbreak with a man
Mm.
when I was 19 years old, and he was older. He was in his 30s, and I was away at college, but I was coming back, and my nose was wide open for this dude, right? Wide
Yeah.
open. And I had never experienced a heartbreak, because listen, brother took me through it, and shout out to him, because we are like, that's my heart to this day. So
Yeah.
there's power in reconciliation, there's power in love, right? But he took me through it, right? And I was at a point of heartbreak where I actually could not share this with somebody, and I shared it with my mom. Shared it
Oh
with my
yeah. So
mom.
your mom was still alive at the. Okay.
Still alive.
So she was
Yeah,
the first. So for 18 years, you said you were performing.
absolutely. And
What?
beyond that,
Right. And
even as I was evolving, it didn't stop at 18. It's not until my 30s when I actually really fully came into my level of comfort with who I am, right? But
man.
yeah, but
So
definitely.
okay. So man, I got so many questions, right?
I know. You didn't know you was opening this
Right.
Pandora's.
So from where I'm going next is you now are, very confident. You're a speaker and a therapist. Like, so all of those times where you were cut when people called you out your name, or they were like, "Hey, are you gay?" Or they're like, it's like daggers. So all these cuts, how did you heal that?
Continue to perform, continue to achieve. I was a great student. I was the president of the school. I was acting. I was singing. I was always in front, right?
Mm.
I was always in front in church. I was known around my community to be a choir director. Nationally, there were some opportunities for me to shine, right? And so I started to build my worth into what I could present to people as,
The
look what I can do.
accomplishments. Yeah.
Right? Here's my accomplishments, right? That pat on the back. Oh my God, Monroe. Woo, you so good, boy. Good, right? And these were the things that made me say I was okay. Even in my sin, even in my shame, even that I'm okay. So if you just keep performing, if you just keep performing, if you just keep doing, if you just keep achieving, if you just keep accomplishing. Let me tell you how deep it went. My mom died at the age of 21. I was at UC Berkeley. She was 49. I was 21. I was at UC Berkeley getting ready to go. Literally, I think I started the first week of the semester, the fall semester. She passed, completely unfocused. And I was like, I got to withdraw. I withdrew and I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, 3 or 4 months after she passed, right? But I was still on this quest to let people know that I'm okay. I can do this. No, I bounce back. I land on my feet. I do that. So I'm in Atlanta and I'm like, I'm gonna buy my first house. I bought my first house at 23, right? And I'm
Oh
like,
wow.
Monroe's out here, he doing it, right? I bought another house 10 months later, right? And then I bought more houses until I was up to 8 homes in Atlanta. And then I had 2 homes in California that my mom had left me through her hard work and her legacy. But I had overextended myself.
Okay.
I was not dealing with myself because all I was focused in on was how can I show people that I'm worthy, that I'm good, that I can accomplish things. And so even if they were to start to find out that I was gay, even if they were start to find out that I was with dudes, but look what I've done.
Right.
Look at the resume. Look at the list. And
So
that's where I reside.
So it was like you were building up this long resume of stuff. So if somebody did figure out, oh, this is the real you, you're like, well, shoot, hold up. The real me still done all this great stuff. So you got to respect this stuff if you're going to accept
Absolutely.
me. So what were the conversations
Absolutely.
that Monroe was having with Monroe at night when everybody's gone and nobody's looking at you? What did that look like or sound like?
How are you going to keep this up? You have bought all these houses. You're running out of money. You have overextended yourself. You made some decisions that weren't in your best favor or interest. How are you going to maintain this? You have established a persona that you have it all together. You have established a persona that you are the one who helps others. Others don't help you. So you now, how are you going to maintain all this when you are hurting, right? When you are about to lose it all. And so it was just this constant cycle of really trying to figure out how to maintain. My thing that I always said, I'll figure it out.
So was there a breaking point?
Yeah, I mean, I had several breaking points. One of them was in 2006 when I had, quit a job, a couple of years before, went out, on my own, maintaining these properties, but I kept buying properties, but still not yet amassing more capital and resources. And the market crashed, and then I'm over here trying to hold on to properties. So I'm hemorrhaging money and I'm like just losing all this money. Then I'm in a very toxic relationship and it turned violent, and I'm now in places and spaces that I thought I would never be in, where police are being called to my house and this person's being arrested, and then I'm having to go and advocate on their behalf because I'm yet still worried about protecting their image, right? We're both DL, we're trying to maintain these covers. Like, man, bro, I'm telling you, and I'm running out of money. I'm dealing with a very controlling individual, right? There's violence involved. I'm still trying to maintain an image of heterosexuality to several people, most of the people in my life. I'm about 26 years old, and I broke, man. I broke, and I had to let go, voluntarily repossess my car, let go of some of the houses, man. My primary home, I had to move out and rent that out. And I had to go back to California
Man,
begrudgingly and start all over.
So I hear the tangible items and the assets, getting repossessed, or you saying, "Hey, I can't handle this." Maybe you do bankruptcy, whatever. I understand that piece. We've seen that play out publicly for a lot of celebrities and athletes. But what about from an emotional standpoint? What did that look like from a breaking point?
I think the biggest thing that I really was contending with was shame. Was shame on multiple levels. Shame that I had, one, we're still dealing with the remnants of, does God even approve of me, accept me? Is all of this happening because I'm gay, right? Is all of this happening because I'm out of the will of God? I am dealing with the shame of building up and now losing it all, right?
Yeah.
So I think the weight of shame for me, and thankfully I'm going to say, didn't manifest into substance use or abuse, but it did manifest into unhealthy sexual practices, is where I'll say, right? And I told you at the beginning of this, I'm an open book, and it's the reason why I got to this place as a therapist. But I was putting myself in some very precarious and dangerous situations, and really trying to just deal with the feeling of powerlessness, deal with the void, because I was not yet stopping to just be with myself, to really deal with myself. I don't think I had yet really grieved the loss of my mother, because I had just kept going. I just kept doing. I just kept performing, and I kept building up all of these things that required so much of me, right? But I wasn't yet equipped emotionally. I wasn't yet equipped. And I'm going to say this lightly, because when I say I wasn't equipped emotionally, I wasn't equipped mentally to really deal with it and handle it. I say that lightly because I actually did deal with it. I actually did handle it, but I will say not in the most constructive way.
Right,
okay?
right. You got through it.
I got through it. I got through it. And I thankfully got through it without some major consequences that, right, could have prevented me from being or doing certain things later on in life, right?
Yeah.
But there were just some like really, really low and dark days. This loneliness of feeling like I can't really tell someone the whole truth, the whole story. Even if I give them a little bit, I'm still concealing something. And that was a lonely space to be in.
So when you were, up until like, late 20s or whatnot, are people asking you like, okay, where, who you dating? Like, who you looking at? Because
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm a handsome brother.
Right.
At that point, I'm driving of my first luxury car. I'm driving a Mercedes. Folks know I got multiple houses, and they like, bro, my straight friends are like, oh, bro, I know you pulling them out.
Right.
You in there I'm like, lo and behold, bro, I'm out here for the dudes. I ain't, but it was this assumption. I think also there's this there's this thing in terms of like passing. So, in terms of this part of my identity, it's not really a salient part unless I tell you, I walk into the room, you assume I'm a man by, what you associate with, man and gender and, biology, right? You assume I'm Black because you see the color of my skin, but maybe the way in which I present masculinity, you may not 100% assume that I'm gay, that I'm queer, right? So there was a level of assimilation that I was able to, kind of access when it came to heterosexuality and heteronormativity. So I was aware of that. And I also used that in certain situations at times. So even though I wasn't outright lying, like, oh yeah, you know, I'm knocking them down and blah, 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 blah. I'm
Okay.
being very vague. I'm being
Yeah.
very vague. I'm not using pronouns if I'm talking about someone who I'm dating. You know, I'm like they,
Mm.
him, you know what I'm saying? I did get into a relationship in my mid-20s with a wonderful, beautiful woman, but it was at the time that I was really actually at my breaking point. And it was at the time when I was like, God, what I'm doing ain't working. So it must be attached to my sexual orientation and this thing with dudes. So listen, I'm a do a 180, and it's me and her. And we were together for 3 years, and she knew about me, right? She
Okay.
knew
Yeah.
about me. But also there was this overlay of like spirituality and deliverance that both her and I were working off of, that said, I am on this road of deliverance from this, and that this is, you know, this is the will of God, and this is the journey. And brother, that ain't it. That
So
wasn't
it
it,
was,
right?
I mean, I guess you know that clip, that meme where the guy is in church and he's like, I don't like men
I ain't
anymore.
gay no more.
Like,
I ain't gay no more. I love women's. Yes, I know that well.
so it's like
Mhm.
that's where she was thinking that, okay, we're gonna get to that point, and you like, this is not, there's a spiritual
Well,
conflict here.
I believed it because I wanted to believe it. I
Mm.
wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that if I just was straight, that my life would get better.
Mm.
And what I didn't know at the time that I know
Mm-hmm.
now is that if I dealt with myself, if I leaned into my authenticity, if I dealt with my healing journey and started that, that's what improved my life experience. And that's where I live today at 42. But at
Got
26, because of what I was bred to believe, that my life was based on who I loved.
you. Bro, you just brought it full circle. I know this is helping so many people, and I want to get to. I guess we got to fast forward to you now, or kind of like getting into the therapy. Like, what brought you to be a therapist? Like, how did you even say, or a social worker? How did that come about?
Well, I had when I moved back to California in 2006, I started my journey in nonprofit leadership and also K-12 school district administration. So I
Mm-hmm.
did that for a while, and there was a point where I said, I need to make a change. I'm ready for a transition, so I decided to go to graduate school, which led me to
Mm-hmm.
New York, and I went to
Oh yeah.
NYU. Yeah, I went to NYU for graduate school. And at that time, the plan was I'm gonna go to NYU. I did a dual master's. So I did a master's in social work and I did a master's in public administration, because I
Mm-hmm.
said I'm gonna go back into nonprofit leadership. I'll ascend to an executive director position, or I'm going to go back into the K-12 school system, public system, and I will ascend to a superintendent, right? I had no intention. That's
So,
2016 when I
yeah.
started graduate school. I had no intention of becoming a clinician. No intention. I didn't want to be a social worker. I chose social work because number one, I saw the vast opportunities from an
Mm.
MSW, from everything from policy to, research to,
Teaching.
practice and clinical, all of that, like anything, right? And then also I wanted to, as a leader, an organizational leader or a education system leader, I wanted to be more rooted in, right, the impacts
Mm.
of environmental impacts on the communities that we serve. That was the
Gotcha.
intention, not to be a clinician. Well, in graduate school, I had a breakdown.
What
In
happened?
graduate school, I had a moment where I was still doing the Monroe thing, where
Mm.
I got everything. I'm a homeowner in New Jersey. I'm working full time back because I had to, right? Because that's a whole
Mm-hmm.
nother conversation we can have about
Yeah.
our experiences as Black folks without a
Oh.
trust fund and without a safety net, going to a $60,000 a year program or institution at NYU and still having to maintain life. I'm an adult now. I'm 36 years old, right? I got responsibilities and ain't nobody footing those things for me, right? So working for free in terms of these internships and everything, was not the business. So I had to go back to work my second year full time as a senior director in a major New York agency and still be in school full time, right? And maintain the things. Now, here's my part, the things that I amassed, the things that I was still trying to show the world that I'm good, I'm okay, right? I got this. But I didn't have the bandwidth and capacity to do it all in that way. And so I began to crumble. And I was dealing with the residue of a relationship, a significant relationship that I had left in California that really had a major impact on me. And I was grieving that relationship, but I wasn't grieving in the most productive way. Because again, I was still accessing that part of me, that void and that powerlessness through unsafe, practices and putting myself in really precarious situations. And let me be very clear, because I'm very sex positive in my practice and in my personal life. So it's not about having multiple partners. It's not a judgment around someone's sexual orientation or anything like that when I say putting myself in precarious situations. But it was me not valuing me. It was me not valuing me and me being unsafe in the things in which I was doing that could bring me harm. So that's what I mean. I just want to be clear.
No, I'm glad you made that delineation.
That's what you talking about. See, you ain't supposed to be gay. You ain't supposed to be, right? Because that's what we use sometimes. Too. So I just want to be clear. But anyway, so that was happening. And I was cracking, man. I was cracking. And the demands of higher education. And I just couldn't keep it all together. So I had a major mental breakdown. And I had to take some time off from school, not long, but I had to take some time off from work. And I had to go into an outpatient intensive 30-day treatment. That was the first time ever I had to, take medication. And I did that begrudgingly, but I knew at that moment I needed something else. I couldn't will myself. I couldn't think myself out of this.
So there are people who are sometimes on the fence about receiving counseling in general, then any type of inpatient help, and then you're talking about somewhat of a long-term intensive outpatient or inpatient setting. How did you make the decision? Like, you know what, Monroe, you just got to do this. Like, how did you come to that conclusion?
Because I had come to the end of what I knew to do. I had come to the end. I'm going to say this again. I had come to the end of what I knew to do. All the things that I had done to get myself out of this and get myself into this and do this, maintain this, and, damage control this was no longer effective. It was never effective, but it was no longer piecing it together, taping it together. When I started to believe that it would be better that I was no longer alive, that's when I knew.
Yeah, man.
You need help. And you need help in a way that is transformative and that is sustainable. No more quick fixes. No more avoidance.
Because it sounds like you were putting Band-Aids on it, but you weren't just not Band-Aids. It sounds like you had some nice ass Band-Aids, if I may say, like,
God.
luxury cars,
Louis Vuitton shoes, right? Bank account overdrawn.
Yeah,
Right? But I was maintaining it.
Right.
I had, got my condo and all this other kind of stuff, man. Because, like you said, beautiful Band-Aids. Beautiful Band-Aids. Right?
Because every time you talk about the house, I'm like, man, did Monroe ever rent or have a roommate? Because it's like,
no, I became a homeowner at 23 years old. This house that I live in now is my 15th house that I purchased.
Man, so if you need a therapist who know how to buy houses, look up Monroe.
But out of 15, I have lost 8. Right? Out of 15, I've lost 8. I've sold others. I now own 2, right? So I'm grateful for where I'm at. But when I say all that, because people like to see the resume. Oh, bro, you bought 15 houses, but if you don't get the full story, you won't know the cost. You won't know the journey. You won't know the real, which is what is important. And we glaze over that. And I wanted people to glaze over that at one point. Now I'm like, no, have a seat real quick. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
What you're not going to do is believe that I got here and it was this straight journey. Very much on the contrary. But I'm here. I'm here now. I'm here and I'm grateful.
So now you're here. You've decided, you're in social work. You take the time off to get better. And how do you make that decision to become a clinician?
Still took me 3 years after graduate school to become a clinician, because I was like, But what happened is that I had, first of all, a transition in what I wanted life to look like. So in graduate school, I decided that I no longer was interested in going back into organizations and managing people, managing, departments or movements and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to be an individual contributor because I wanted more flexibility and autonomy in my time. I wanted more opportunities to travel. And this was before COVID. I wanted to work remotely. Like I wanted to work remotely. I wanted, which was attached to the flexibility and the autonomy, right? And I put those intentions into the atmosphere, and those things manifested for me in a job right after graduate school. It wasn't as a clinician, but it was as a consultant, and I was working contracted with the military, and I was going into classrooms on the bases, observing children, writing up recommendations for how to work with them, right? And then training those classroom teachers, right? But I hated the administrative portion of it and writing these long ass reports. And I was like, nah, this ain't it either. Yeah. So then I went into life coaching, and I was like, okay, that was after I resigned from that job, I was in this place and space like, okay, God, I'm out here. Now what do I do? Now what do I do? And so I started creating inspirational videos on Instagram and just started being transparent about my journey, about my healing journey. I just started talking about what I had gone through and the things that I am still developing or going through, and in some places where I'm in a much better place. And it started resonating with people. And then somebody eventually reached out, because I started doing interviews, and people were like, hey, can you tell us more, blah, blah. Somebody reached out and said, hey, would you be my life coach? And I was like, before I could say no, my spirit said yes. And I said yes. I said yes. And that was my first client. And then I built that business. And then my ex-partner at the time, and that's probably a new revelation to you. I don't know if I told you that, but I'm not single.
Okay, I didn't know that. So thank you for keeping me up to date.
Yeah. We can talk offline. But at that time, my ex-partner and I were moving to making a transition here to the DMV. And that's when I said, listen, go all the way in, go get licensed. Because I was getting confirmation along the way that your experience, your expertise, your perspective, the unique intersection of your identity is an asset to this mental health community. You've got the credentials, right? Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. Man. And that's what I did. And that's how I got here.
I did not know you were a life coach first. I'm a life coach too. So I didn't know that you were, man, this has been dope. So now let's kind of get into some of the work that you're doing now. Like, one, your story, again, hearing it, like right now, it just moves me, and I know it's going to move so many other people too. So when you're working with your clients, like who's the population that you specialize in or with?
LGBTQ plus Black folks. 85% of my clientele identify somewhere along the queer spectrum, primarily gay, as they identify as gay, and primarily as cisgender Black men. So if you want to talk about the niche or the sweet spot, that's where it's at. But I also have several clients who identify as transgender. And I also work with cisgender heterosexual individuals as well, but primarily Black gay men.
Now, what makes your niche so important and effective? I think I want to know that.
Yeah, I think just first of all, the access to individuals who identify as Black and queer Black queer men, I know from my own personal experience, when I was seeking a therapist, I wasn't able to easily or readily access someone who identified as such. So number one, I think that is, a relevancy that brings me to the forefront for a lot of individuals who are seeking that. And I think also then just me and my level of transparency, right? When we go to social work school, this thing about disclosure, is, and those things, boundaries are very important in my practice, and I practice them every single day. But I am not a robot. I am not someone who comes to this work or to this space without an experience, without a past, without a present. And where appropriate, disclosure really helps that therapeutic relationship and really kind of breaking down some of those barriers and walls so that people know that the person that they are speaking with not only can empathize and in a way in which we can all empathize, but someone who can identify at times some of the things that they are going through and with. And I think that creates a level of comfort that really does kind of help that healing process and that therapeutic journey.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody earlier who was talking about, how they saw a therapist and had different coaches. And they made a big point to say, I wanted to work with somebody who not only could help me with the skill set, but who had been through the similar things. And that was like a turning point. And we talked, I don't know if it was during the conversation or beforehand, but with us, especially Black men, having somebody that looks like you is the singular most important part of that therapeutic process. Do you understand me? Do I have to break things down? Are you going to judge or misdiagnose? So for you to be a part of the LGBT community, that has to speak volumes with your patients, and it has helped really expedite the therapeutic rapport.
Yeah. And it's the population that I'm proud to be a member of the community. It is the population that I am definitely most passionate about, because everything that you just heard me talk about, right, is what got me to this point. And to be a part of someone else's journey, to help give some perspective, to help give some insight, to help make some discoveries alongside of someone in their journey, like, yo, that is me pouring back into the blessings in which I feel, right, that I am reaping and the benefits of, So absolutely, it's a calling, it's a passion to be here.
Yeah, man, and I know you've done so much work, right, as a therapist, but also as a speaker. Like, talk about what that's been like to help people on a larger scale.
Yeah, listen, man. That's my thing. I felt old when I was about to say that's my damn, right? But like that's my thing, bro. Like I love to communicate, whether it be one-on-one or whether it be in a lot like this. Me and you, I could do this with you all day. You know what I'm saying?
I know, yeah.
Have conversations, and so that translates to being on the stage. Because I really do feel like, and here's the thing, because this was something that I doubted for so long, but now I am more confident in. My voice has a place and space in this world. Right?
Definitely.
And I think a lot of us really struggle with that in many different ways, no matter how we might be masking it with the presentation of confidence. And I know you are the confidence expert, so I know you can talk about this all day long, right? But I really do believe now that my voice, my unique voice, has a place and space in this world, and that it is there to impact and to speak to somebody. Somebody, right? I got caught up on like, well, is it resonating with enough people? And like, but I'm seeing everybody, this whole comparison, well, they getting all these followers. And I'm just like, when it came down to it, I was like, every time I speak, every time I present, if there is just one person that can walk away with something to say, damn, I am so glad that I was able to hear that from him, we good. We're good.
Period. And as being a confidence expert, what helped me was really, 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 like, for real, being myself. We've shared stages together, and you definitely, we have different ways of articulating and communicating, but having to be comfortable with, this is me and this is Monroe, and this is, John or Brandy, whomever, and owning that and knowing that I can still show up and be me, not have to worry so much. Because I mean, we still have worries and concerns, but still be effective, be authentic. And that's when people be like, you know what? I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Whether you're yelling, whether you're more I don't say monotone, but just, different, everybody has a different approach.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
think it just speaks to the diversity of humanity.
Yeah.
Like the people that you reach are the people that you reach. The people that I reach are the people that I reach. And so because they all exist in humanity, why would I count myself out and say that I am not as worthy to be on this platform or these stages as my brother sitting next to me? Because he's reaching the people he need to reach. I'm reaching the people that I need to reach, and we both gonna get this. Like, what's good?
Yeah.
We both going to grow from the experiences, and the most important thing is that people are being reached. People are being
period.
reached.
Period. And we're gonna reach some of the same people too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, last question: what is next for Monroe? Like, what do you see your life going, and personally and professionally?
Yeah, man. Personally, I'll start with that, and I mentioned to you it again, I was one of the major transitions in my life recently is that the uncoupling of my relationship, a relationship that I cherish, but again, we did it in love and with respect with one another. And so I'm very proud to say that I have a person in my life who will forever be a major part of my heart, and I feel the same is for him. So going forward, I look forward to eventually being partnered again at some point. But I think the next major iteration of my family is adoption, is to become a father. So I would say within the next 2 to 3 years, that is definitely something I will be intentional and actionable about, seeing that manifestation of that. Professionally, I want to continue to expand my brand as a speaker, as a presenter. I want to be an author, and transparently, that's something I'm working through right now in terms of my fear around putting out publishing and putting out the publications. And I'm working with my therapist on that. I'm very comfortable with oration, right?
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable with speaking. But I've got some fears and insecurities through, well, what are they gonna think? Because now they can just pick it apart and and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's my truth. And that's all good. We're gonna get through that. But that's where I'm at now. But I aspire to be an author and to create materials that people can access, at will. People can access on demand, and that can, again, be, because I think about capacity a lot. I'm one person. So even when I think about this work that I do in my private practice, while it is transformative, it's life-changing, it can also be draining, at times.
Yeah, for sure.
And there is a life life balance. There is a life fulfillment and experience that I want to have, that I want to be open to, especially when I'm talking about bringing children into it, that I want to make sure that I have the capacity to do so. So I truly believe that moving into this direction of being able to speak more on larger platforms, being able to get publications out there, is something that is going to afford me the resources, both monetarily and both emotionally and spiritually and physically, to be able to live this life that I live now and that I want to continue to live.
Bro, when you wrapped up, I was like, man, I can see you being the choir director, music. It's like you just you orchestrating everything. It's in you. Bro. It's in. I'm just sitting here like, no, and you over there got a whole big old choir. But no, seriously, I almost lost my train of thought with that one because I just saw it. We were talking about you wrapping up, speaking. I know luxury is you. You're gonna do everything in greatness. Oh, that's what I was gonna say, man. So like halfway through, I was saying like Monroe should definitely write a book. Like I didn't say it like you were talking, but man, is there anything that we didn't cover or that you want people? Oh, that's my bad. Are you taking new clients? That's the question.
Yeah. So I will say this. I'm pretty much at capacity. I'm probably a little over
I
capacity
figure
right
it's all right.
now, to be honest. But I always want to encourage, and I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
intentional here about specifically the Black queer population to reach out to me, because I, again, understand the complexities and really accessing
Mm.
care through someone like me. And so if it is not me, I am currently building a network and a referral network of individuals who identify as I do, that if I can't particularly walk with you and work with you, then I want to be able to refer you to someone who can. So
Yeah.
I am going to encourage people to continue to reach out to me to seek services. And, you know, as I, you know, terminate relationships with other clients, you know, space opens up and opportunities will, yeah, please still reach out.
Yeah, man, that's the hard part when you got a specialty, you're good, like it's tough, and then you want to help everybody. So that's why I was like, I'm gonna ask him, but I'm pretty sure it's tight. But no,
It's
Monroe, this
tight,
is
bro. It's tight.
this has been a huge man opportunity and blessing for me to be able to talk with you. Like I said, I'm going to send this out to so many people. If you know somebody, if you're listening in and you know someone who could benefit from hearing Monroe speak, I mean, this brother is dope. Follow him. Oh, drop your socials and it's going to be in the show notes
Yeah,
too. Where do you want
yeah,
people to
yeah, yeah.
do at?
Yeah, so my personal page, and it's public. So if you kind of want to understand what my brand is as an individual, Adventure Smiles and Style, right? That's he_smiles,
Mm-hmm.
he_smiles. And then my work, in terms of, you know, really where I'm honing my work and my practice, I just created, so it's new, it's a new platform,
I
but on
saw it. Go.
Instagram, on Instagram, Black Queer Healing Space.
Mm-hmm.
Black Queer Healing Space. Please go there, follow. I'm actually doing some great things, some collaborations in May during Pride Week here in DMV. So I'm excited about that. So you'll see that platform grow. But that whole, you know, the whole mission of that is to provide a portal for people to access different
Mm-hmm.
modalities of healing, right? It's not just therapy, but I also want to really
Yeah.
start to highlight other ways in which, and again, that unique perspective of Black and queer, that intersection is where we're going to live there. So I want you to go ahead and follow Black Queer Healing Space.
Man, Monroe, this has been dope, man. I appreciate you. We're gonna definitely have to do it again.
Likewise, brother. Likewise. Let me tell you just this so your listeners can hear this, man. This man right here is tried and true, through and through, genuine and authentic. And I'm telling you, every single encounter and every single interaction with you is uplifting. It is replenishing. I watch you. I celebrate you, brother. I am inspired by you. There are many things that I see, brother, that you are really just setting the tone and you are setting the blueprint out there, man. I love you, brother. So
Love you,
thank
bro.
you
Appreciate it.
for really just being a part of my life, right? Both professionally and personally, man. So I needed to say that.
Dang.
I needed to.
I appreciate that. Man, love you, bro. This is good, y'all. We got a classic. Peace.